Welcome to the GTP. My name is Scott, and we're going to go ahead and review Pet Shop of Horrors Volume 1, the Collector's Edition from 7 Seas. So in this video, I'm going to go ahead and talk about what is the story about. Then we're going to share my overall impressions of the story. And last, I'm going to go ahead and talk about just the Collector's Edition and what did I think of this new print run from 7 Seas, as this has been a story that's been out of print for such a long time. So let's go ahead and first start off with what is this story all about. Pet Shop of Horrors is considered a josei series, but just because it was written towards a female audience doesn't mean that an adult male like myself would not enjoy the series. And, you know, just a little spoiler warning, I actually did enjoy this series, but we're talking about first, what is the story all about? And there's an overarching story, even though each chapter is episodic in nature. There is just been, it seems like there's a massive serial killer on the loose as people are just dying left and right. And the only thing detectives can link to all these deaths is they all bought a pet from this pet shop. In this overall story, as we go to each episode, you're following people who buy a pet, and then those who choose to not follow the rules. Unfortunately, bad things happen to them, but not bad things happen to every single one. But overall, it usually doesn't work out too well when you don't follow the rules. And I do love in the beginning of the story, it did even give a nod to Gremlins, where they didn't follow the rules and the person's calling in Pet Shop and they're like, sorry, we're not liable for what's happening to you. And it sounds like they didn't make it. So I will say that's about the premise of this. You're following Count D, the owner-ish of the pet shop. Well, he says he's not the owner. His grandfather owns it, but he's just running it. And each episode or each chapter, you get to follow this mini story. And it feels almost like a Tales from the Crypt or like a Twilight Zone where for some reason things seem to reset at the end, but there's still these horrors along the way, and there's an overall arching story where you can see continuing where they'll remind you about past cases of things that have happened. But it's not all it seems to be. Is there a little magic involved, a bit of some mythical creatures, and the pet shop just seems to have these rare creatures that nobody else can find or see. And man, I will say this story is definitely not for the faint of heart. So as we go into, let's go ahead and talk about what are my overall thoughts of the story itself. I will say, besides not the faint of heart, I was completely sucked into the story. It was a page turner, and there were a couple of times, just a couple, that my jaw dropped and I was like, oh my goodness, oh snap. I was a little shocked. So when I mean by not faint of heart, if we talk about an age rating, I would probably, it says 15 or older. Yeah, I guess that's so, or 16 or older. It's definitely for a more mature audience. There wasn't anything too heavy on adult content, at least in the first 2-in-1 volume here. But I did feel a lot of just some of that horror aspect and the blood where you're like, whoo! And then just some of the zany and craziness of the Twilight Zone with something happening where people did not follow the rules, and something happened that I just did not expect, and it just kept happening and happening, and it was just nuts. Very, very good, very gripping. I thoroughly enjoyed this first volume here. I would say if I would give it a GTP rating, I would easily give it an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10. Not the greatest thing in the world, a 10, but super solid, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's a series that's been out of print for a very long time. So let's go ahead and now talk about what are my thoughts of this edition, and just give you a comparison. So the original one was Tokyo Pop, and it was in one of these type of forms here. So kind of like a standard, you know, Shonen Jump or Viz title. And then now you see we have this larger trim here, which I really appreciate. And they did it justice. It does feel a little bit more on the heavier side, I will say, while reading it. But they gave us the really nice, thick, white pages, so they did not go cheap on the pages itself. I really hope 7 Seas continues the rest of the collectors with these pages. And for an MSRP of $24.99, I think you could easily find this for 20 bucks. And I think that's a steal, to be honest, for this. Now, I believe there's going to be 5 total 2-in-1s is what they're going to do for this. Says the standard here. And this has been out of print for a very long time. I do appreciate we have this glossiness here. I'm not sure if in the video it's not only glossy, but it's a little resize where it's printed up. You can feel it here where it's a little up on it when you press it. It's absolutely gorgeous cover. The biggest gripe I have is that there's no color pages. So I hope the couple of new ones coming out, when they bring out the other ones, there will be some colored pages. That would be the only thing I thought was a bummer, is that there's no color pages. Oh, and I also want to say it's a new translation. So I haven't read the previous translation since it's so out of print. And before they announced this new printing, I mean, I think a collection of it was going for about $500 online. You can now get the Tokyo Pops, I think, for around $200 or $250. But at this point, with how fast they're printing these, I'd say by next year, all of them will be available. I would just pick it up this way. And even the end, I do appreciate there's some notes from the author about the new collector's edition. So I thought that was really cool too, is when you go ahead and you check this out here, there's a note from the author in the back where he says, hey, thanks for checking out the new collector's edition of this book. So I thought that was neat that there's a nod from that, and I hope the author had some influence on the new translation. Again, I don't know if the old translation was bad, but I am really appreciating that the 7 Seas took the additional extra time to give us not only the bigger trim, having a really nice paper. Man, really nice, the paper. I love it. Not cheap whatsoever. This will last a long time. And to have the translation and then have notes from the author was a nice touch. I just wish there was some color pages in this. I'd say for a collector's edition, especially since they're saying collector's edition, it would have been nice if we added some color pages to this, as I'm sure there were color pages when it originally was printed in the magazine. So that's all I have for you. That's my thoughts of the overall story about what this is about and what I think of this. I highly recommend it. Absolutely love Pet Shop of Horrors, the first volume. Again, not for the faint of heart, not for kids, but not necessarily heavy on the adult content, just a horror aspect. But if you like a feeling of a Twilight Zone-ish on each episode on what's happening, I think this is going to be definitely up your alley. Really great first volume. I'm definitely going to be picking up the second and third. I'm excited to have this in my collection, and I will say I do believe looks pretty good on the shelf. So that's all I have for you. Hey, thank you so much for watching. I'd love to know in the comments below, what are your thoughts of this new collector's edition? Is it something you're going to be picking up yourself? It's great to talk about in the community, as other peoples will chime in on their comments, and it's just more fun when we get to interact back and forth. I respond to every comment when I can. When I can. I do respond back to every comment. I don't think there's been a time where I have not responded to a comment, and if I didn't, definitely not by choice. So, hey, thank you so much. See you on the next one.